Morning, everyone out there. Let me check everything as usual. Make sure we're all good from a platform standpoint. Testing, test. Yeah, it's the day.
You want to create something? You want to build?
Before Valentine's Day, and we gotta address this. I got a pretty extensive dating history here, and I gotta talk about it. So, got to talk about it. It would not be me if I don't break the whole thing down and give you my views, my thoughts on relationships, what they're all about, what they should be all about, how to mold them, and how to just accept people for who they were taught to be from jump. So we'll get into all that in a second. Let me just make sure we're all good on Facebook, good on LinkedIn. Let me just check YouTube real quick, and then we'll get this party started right.
All right. Now that's exactly spilled. Who's got the sauce?
Get through this app real quick.
Do this to clear out stuck poop fast. In 2019, my mom was rushed to the hospital to have
Test. All right, we're good. We're good to go. All right, welcome, folks. If it's your first time tuning in to me, my name as One Crookshank, former Division I college football player and current 5-time published author and educator. And what I do, what I created, what this business, what the whole Move Swiftly movement is all about. It's all about taking the lessons from the lessons that you learn on the football field about teamwork, the innovative teamwork lessons that you learn on the football field, and applying them to businesses. So you have a staff, a group of employees that is as hungry and as eager as a championship high school or youth football team. That is what we do over here in a nutshell. And before we get started on what we're going to be discussing today, let me just get through a couple announcements. First things first, boxing lessons, free boxing lessons. Listen to me, West Palm Beach. You need to be involved with this. If you can make it, we do it every 2 weeks. It's part of I'm a group leader. I'm a life group leader at the church I attend, Life Church in Wellington. And if you're interested, just make sure you hit that QR code right there, and I'll get you all the information. Like I said, we do them every 2 weeks. Again, continuing to serve business owners, serve as many business owners as humanly possible. Make sure you go to freeguide.makeyourmove.com. That's freeguide.makeyourmove.com. What I did is I created 10 steps, 10 things that you can implement right now that'll make it so your team is moving in a more cohesive fashion. And be sure to tap in with me on the Patreon link, patreon.com/as144. Now that we are fully in February, it's time to really get this membership going. Regardless of where you are financially, where you are profit-wise, there is a place for you in the Patreon community. All right, let me go back to the thumbnail, because as I was looking at this, I thought about that moment. I thought about that moment where I first held my niece in my hands, and I'll be 100% honest with you, man. I was 20 years old. I had just got to Stony Brook, which was my dream school at that time, playing. I left camp. I grew up in Maryland, so it's in Long Island. I took the 5-hour drive from Long Island back to Maryland, knowing that I wasn't going to have an extended period of time to stay, because I had to get back to play. Like I mentioned, played football at Stony Brook, so I had to get back to camp. My niece was born sort of in the end of August time. And I made sure I drove there just to get a whiff of that newborn baby, man. And I think my dad, he's big when it comes to family memories and taking pictures and all that. Pretty sure it was my father who was able to snap that shot, get a beautiful one where, oh my God, that is honest to God, just turned 36 this year. That was the first time I actually felt real love. I mean, that moment where I held my niece in my hand as a baby was the first time I felt it. And the reason I'm discussing this is because I'm recording this the day before a Valentine's Day, another Valentine's Day. And over the years, I've seen this holiday become just as commercial as Christmas, become just as corporate, just as much about, giving gifts and chocolate and flowers and all the things that you can use, or that you can really just give to anyone, to be honest with you. But all the things that come with being in a relationship, kind of the sweet, I don't like to use the term sweet, but kind of the things that just you feel like you have to do. All right. Like if you're going to be with, so let's say I was like, and I'm going to dive into my high school relationship in a second, but actually I'll just give you the example now. Like for my high school years, all throughout high school, I had the same high school sweetheart, I had the same high school girlfriend. And I remember one year during Valentine's Day when I did some just punk shit. I'm thinking back to my high school self, but I did it. Like I went and bought her like a balloon with Mickey Mouse and some candy and stuff like that. And I did it only because I just felt like it's something that you had to do during Valentine's Day. It's just something that you did, not that I wanted to actually do it. It was just chocolates and stuff like that. And the simping and the it's kind of embarrassing to tell this story, but I'll tell it because I'm an authentic content creator at this point. But the fact that I felt like I had to do that was me succumbing to the world. All right. And what I'm going to explain to you guys today is how God, it needs to be the main source of your direction. I was not at all into really the word of God at that point. When I was in high school, I was, again, when it comes to relationships, I was just going based off the view of the world I had. So again, we're going to tap into all of that. I kind of got started a little earlier because I had to get that. I mean, every time I look at that thumbnail and I think about that particular time and you freeze that moment, and to see, yes, this is the same girl, guys. This little baby has turned into this beautiful teenager. Right? It's the same exact person. And this is the first time I've actually seen growth like that. So before we get too into what we're going to talk about today, let me show you today's, first of all, let's get a definition. Let's start here. We're going to start here. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start here. We are going to get a definition of worldview. All right. We're going to get a definition of worldview right now. All right. I want to read you a definition of the worldview. It's a particular philosophy of life or conception of the world. A particular philosophy of life, conception of the world. So let me just give you a brief of how I grew up and the kind of world view I developed. All right. I grew up in a 2-parent household. My mother and father came from Trinidad and Tobago, and both of these individuals worked together to build a life for my sister and I that was very, very much very much not like others. All right, we'll say it like that. Very much not similar to others who quote unquote look like us. All right. So this is why whenever I hear the term Black culture, whenever I hear the term Black community, whenever I hear those terms, I denounce that. I don't believe in it. I don't agree with it. I think it's something that a lot of Black people use as an excuse to not pursue the things that they should be pursuing. They're always making an excuse about how somebody's not going to let you do something just because of your skin color before you actually try. And another thing that I never really resonated with was this idea, growing up with an older sister and growing up in a 2-parent household. Both of these individuals, my mother and my sister, is how I first learned how to be in a relationship. And both my sister and my mother, they worked every single day. They showed up. My sister's had a job virtually her entire life. My mother still works even to this day, even though she doesn't have to. They work. So I never really resonated with this idea of a woman being with a woman and her telling me, oh, she just doesn't want to work. I never like this. Again, let me just put the definition up again. My worldview, particular philosophy of life or conception of the world. My worldview was never that of making it so a woman doesn't work. Okay. Even if you aren't working a job, being a mother is work. Being in a marriage is work. Everything, if you're going to maintain a home, it's going to be work. If you're going to cook, that's work. All right. Everything you do is going to be work. What I did grow up in, the blend that I did have, the worldview I did have, was that of, again, my mother and my sister were women who worked jobs, but my father ran his own business and he was working. But at the same time, he was working in an industry, or working by doing something he actually enjoyed. He would tell me all the time, I love math. So that what's made me want to become an architect, because I get to, do certain things from a math perspective, and I get to run my own firm, and this is work. I'm actually getting paid to do the work that I would do regardless of if I was getting paid or not. So this idea of never having to work is something that if you like, and I've gone on many days, I'm going to get into my dating history throughout today because we're talking Valentine's Day, we're talking relationships and all that kind of stuff. But I'll tell you right now, the disconnect that I've had with plenty, there's a huge amount of women out there that I've interacted with that they've been potential suitors or potential friends, former friends, whatever it is you want to call them, whatever situationship there was. There's no moving forward with me if you have the mentality of you just don't want to work. That's the problem. That's really the problem. That's really something. And it has taken me some time. It has taken me some serious time, some serious counseling, some serious accepting of how I grew up, where I grew up, and what I'm all about, to really understand that, this idea of not working is something that you don't even come at me with that kind of shit. Because for me, work is embedded in everything that we do, because that was the household I grew up in. All right. That was the household that I spent my formative years, and how to be in a relationship with someone. That's how I grew up. All right. So when it comes to Valentine's Day, and then why, I chose to bring this up as a way of explaining to you guys what relationships are all about, how you should be going about building a relationship with someone, how you should be going about being a part of something special. Is it has to be a true partnership and a true connection on world views. All right. You can't expect to go out there and meet the perfect person. It's not going to happen. Going out there and expecting to meet the perfect person will not happen. What you can do is you can develop your worldview to the point in which you have principles, and you stick to your principles, and you decide that this is what you're going to be doing regardless of who's in your life and who's not in your life. And you connect with people to the point in which you have enough conversation and you are working together with an individual. But it just is not going to be, oh, you're going to meet this one person and all of a sudden your life is going to change and become better. That's what they sell you. That's what the world likes to tell you. That's what keeps a lot of people from going out and exceeding the possibilities of what it is they're going to do. So for those of you who don't know, I know I'm recording this on a Thursday, but every Friday, I know tomorrow's Valentine's Day, but every single Friday I've started something called Faith-Based Friday, where I go over Pastor Craig Groeschel. The church I go to is Life Church. I go over his message from the previous Sunday. So I have a treat for you guys today, especially if you're a regular consumer to my work. I have a treat for you guys today because I listened to one of his sermons. So he did a sermon for this. It's a Christian dating app called Upward. Sermon on this. Make sure good here. Connection's unstable. Let's give it a second here. Let's make sure the connection's right. Come on, Wi-Fi. While it's doing that, let me get some more. All right, we're back. There we go. All right, so Pastor Craig Groeschel gave a sermon on this Christian dating app, And I want to let him take it away for a couple seconds here because, like I said, tomorrow we'll dive deeper into Craig Pastor's message from this past Sunday. But because we're getting into Valentine's Day, I want to have him, because he spoke to me this morning. And again, it's a 36-year-old man, another Valentine's Day single. However, it doesn't feel like I'm single. It does not feel like I'm single at all. And I'm telling you why. It's because every single Sunday for the past, since this past summer, I've been going to church every single Sunday. I became a group leader at this church. I started paying my tithes again. I started really diving into the church community again. And I'm recognizing exactly what he's getting ready to say, which is a single person. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just let him say it. I'm gonna let him say it and we're gonna comment on it.
Our goal. Serving Jesus is our goal.
Let me take it.
Culture will tell you this. To really be fulfilled in life, you have to find the one. You have to find the one. To really be happy in life, you have to find the one. You have to find the one. No, what I would say is to really be fulfilled in life, one day you might say, I met the two. What do we know? Jesus is going to be your one, and your spouse is going to be your two. Seek the Lord God with all of our hearts.
Preach it.
First,
Take them to church.
and his right.
Come on. He said, all right, let me say it. For the people in the back, I'm going to do it one more time for you.
Life, you have to find the one. You have to find the one. No, what I would say is to really be fulfilled in life, one day you might say, I met the two.
Yes.
What do we know? Jesus is going to be your one, and your spouse is going to be your two.
Period, point blank, end of sentence. Period, point blank, end of sentence. What the world is going to tell you, and this is, again, we're going to get into all of this as I continue to go, but I wanted to start right there. Here's what has to happen. The world will put it on you. It's all over the media. It's everywhere you turn. They're going to be talking. I mean, just even this past Super Bowl, you saw more headlines about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, because what they want to feed your kids, what the kind of worldview they want implanted in your kid's skull is that they need another person. You as a man, you need to go find a wife to be fulfilled. You as a woman, you need to go find a husband or find a man to be fulfilled. They actually, let me not even use the term wife or husband. You just need to be with someone. We can accept the fact, we're going to go ahead and accept it if you two aren't married. We're going to go ahead and accept it if you two go and build and live with someone that you're not married to, and now you got kids with this person, and now you got bills piling up. You don't know if you could afford it. Then, there's nothing legally binding. Your lives are up or your lives are ruined because the two of you didn't do things God's way. The two of you did not go out and say, we're going to get married first, and then we're going to build a house, and then we're going to start having kids when we're prepared to do this. You two didn't do that. All right. You two just had the kids. You tried to figure it out on the fly, and now we're going, and then your life gets ruined, and then you have to figure it out as you go and all that kind of stuff. The world accepts that. But what Pastor's saying, and what you need to be saying, and what you need to be focusing on is that God, if you do things the Lord's way, eventually, I'm not going to say your life is going to be perfect. It's not. But eventually, a lot of the problems that hold a lot of great people back. And I'm not going to do my best not to name names on today's episode and throw anybody under the bus, because it might not, I try my best not to do that kind of stuff as a content creator. But there's a lot of people listening to me right now. A lot of people that know me personally know I'm talking directly to you. Yes, you, yeah, talking directly to you, who know that had you decided that I was going to wait, had you decided that I was going to, first of all, get married to this person or see if this is a person that I even want to be married to, if I was going to commit fully, if I was going to do things God's way, build the house, make sure we're established, and then have the kids, for a fact your life would be different right now. For a fact that the things that you wanted to accomplish, you would have been able to accomplish had you not made that one mistake. Yes, I'm talking to you. All right, because that's the majority of people, and that's the way the world teaches us. And when Pastor said that, I was listening to it this morning, actually. And when he said that, it strikes a chord. It strikes a chord, doesn't it? And it makes it so you're all right being single. I'm all good by myself, right? I'm all good because I know I'm not by myself. In fact, I may not physically be with someone, but you're actually not at all by yourself. You got God, man. You got God. You got God with you, who is as consistent, the only perfect person, the only one who is consistent, only one who will not change. They will not, jump in your DMs and then jump out of your DMs. They're not going to send you selfies and then not send stuff. They're not going to be inconsistent. The God won't be inconsistent with his word. He won't be inconsistent with how he said. He's just simply going to be God all day, every day. That's it. Just the consistency. The person that you're pursuing, the person that eventually that you're going to be married to and that you're going to build a life with, they're going to have their days where they're frustrated. They're going to have their days where they're not as consistent, just as you are. That's why they're the number two. It's God and then your spouse. It's God and then your spouse. But also, I want to take you back to this idea of making sure you know what your worldview is. All right. Because again, like I expressed earlier, my worldview is that of a worldview, again, raised in a Caribbean household, 2-parent Caribbean household, my mother and father were together and they did very well for themselves from where they came from. All right. I look at them as folks who were rich compared to where they came from, grew up in a very tiny island in Trinidad and Tobago, was able to move to Silver Spring, Maryland, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C., and they did everything they could for my sister and I to grow up in a home, a stable home. And again, they showed us the value of work. So me being the youngest child growing up, I never looked at work as something that you just don't have to do. So I'm laughing when I say this. Because I hear a lot of guys tell me, oh man, my goal is that my wife don't got to work no more. I've never got that. I never understood that. It's like, mofo, being a wife is actually work. No, that's actually I'm dead ass, bro. I have had conversations with men my age who have told me directly, yo, I'm doing this so my wife don't gotta work no more, y'all. But it's like the message is confusing to me because it's like being a wife is work. It's part of the deal, right? It's part of the deal. Being a mother is work. Cooking is work. All of this stuff is work. I think it's just a matter. And the more I accept it, the more I think about it, is I realize that I grew up in a household where there was no, oh, you just not gonna work. Like that wasn't the work. That wasn't the concept or the idea that was floating around the Cruikshank household. What was floating around the Cruikshank household was, yeah, you're gonna have to work. But again, fortunately for me, I have a father who enjoyed his work. He ran his own business. He worked for himself. So the work thing wasn't something that was very intimidating for me, unlike other households, and I guess the way other households were ran, right? So anyway, what happened with me personally, and I'll tell you this because it's interesting because I didn't plan to segue the way I segued. But what happened with me and why I chose this thumbnail to express my points, all right, is because for me, at the top of my non-negotiables per se, some people call it non-negotiables, some people call it like, okay, what's the thing that if you're in a relationship or if you're seeking a potential partner, or if you're a suitor, or if you just looking for a new relationship, whatever it is, what are the non-negotiables? What are the things that have to happen that you're not even going to budge on? All right. For me personally, it's fatherhood. All right. It's fatherhood for me, 1000%. And the worldview I had growing up, the father I actually had, my actual father, my 4 uncles, all my football coaches, all my teammates, and all the people I actually, when I worked at a gym, there was tons of father figure type, older brother, father figure type guys around me. I was one of the blessed ones to have had a ton of male influences growing up. And the girl that a lot of people expected me to be with, the girl that a lot of people expected me to marry because we were together throughout my entire high school career, all 4 years of high school, I was with this girl. The girl that I was with, I woke up one morning and realized how different our worldviews actually were. And this is where it gets scary. This is where it gets absolutely dangerous because the relationship was physical. You know, this is high school. These are just me and her, two horny high school kids that are just experimenting with sex and all that kind of stuff, just doing it because it's the cool thing to do. You don't want to be in high school and be that person that's not having sex, especially if you're in a football locker room. Man, that sucks. I'm telling you, it sucks. It sucks, and I get it. I 1,000% get it. Any high schoolers listening to me right now, I get it. I know the idea or how that may make you look amongst your peers, but I'm telling you as a grown man, it is not worth it. These people's opinion of you, because you've decided and you've made the decision as a young man or a young woman that you're going to wait for marriage to have sex, there's so many more benefits on the back end than you know, checking a card and walking into a football locker room and saying, you know, I tapped that ass and feel like you're a new man. Like when you just lose your virginity and shit in high school, like you walk like you're a new man. It's like that scene from ATL. Oh man, that thing cracks me up because you had T.I. and his brother. Well, like you a new man or something, huh? You like everybody's so damn happy. You know, you can always tell when a high schooler finally gets some. Especially, I'm just speaking on the man's perspective. When a high schooler finally gets some, and you know, he finally loses his virginity, and you look at him like, what the. He got a little confidence now. And I'm telling you, I know the feeling in the moment. I'm with you, but it's not worth it. All right, folks, it's not worth it. I can speak from I can bring on man after man after man after man that will confirm what I'm saying to you right now. It is not worth it. It is not worth it because if you get too comfortable in that lifestyle, if you get too comfortable in the recreational sex and the casual sex, eventually one of these are going to come out and then life gets life, right? It gets really hard at that point. At that point, being a single dad is a strong possibility. At that point, you're young, really, really young, and you got to figure out how you're going to feed one of these. How you going to feed one of these? And, you know, if they get sick and shorts, I mean, you are responsible for another human life. Because you wanted to be Mr. Man. You wanted to be the man, dog. You wanted to be in that locker room, having tapped that ass, having being the man, right? So again, I'm not talking that. I'm talking to you because this was me. This was the only reason I was with my high school girlfriend as long as I was with her. Was because she allowed me to do that. And, you know, again, with me, I was so focused on playing football, so focused on getting to college and playing ball. And, you know, I was so consumed by the game. I didn't really care how well I connected with someone. As long as they was giving up some ass, then, you know, I was good. So, and I say that jokingly, but seriously, when you grow up as close, so I grew up really, really close with my older sister, and all the things that you would do with a girlfriend, obviously outside of having sex, I did with my sister. I would go to movies with my sister. I go shopping with my sister. We were so tight growing up that really only thing I needed a girlfriend for at that age was the sex. So, you know, that's really all it was. So as long as you was giving up some buns, that was me in high school. And then as that fizzled out, because it got so monotonous, it got so boring, it got to the point where I didn't even like doing it, man. Could you imagine? As hard as, but these are the things that happen. I'm telling you, these are the things that happen, is when you do it so much and you realize how you were brainwashed to feel like if you're not doing it, then you're not cool, then you're not in this in group, you're not in this inner circle, you're not you're kind of being made fun of. And yes, the feeling in the moment is good. I get it. I get all of that. But when you realize it is actually overrated compared to actually making a connection with someone, you two actually accomplishing things, you two actually doing things the Lord's way. And he actually says it in his sermon. I think Pastor Craig Rochelle says it in his sermon. Let me look it up real quick so you guys can find it. Yes, Relationship Goals and Upward, exclusive message, Pastor Craig Rochelle. Go look that up. Go watch that whole thing when you get a chance. But he talked about this idea of being physically, you know, having sex with someone regularly before you get married. He said, look, you get married, you go to the honeymoon, and it's just business as usual. There's business as usual, right? Because you've already been doing it regularly since, months or years, however long you guys were engaged or how long you guys decided you were going to, ignore that idea, ignore that concept. And you go, you celebrate, you have all your family and friends, you go to the honeymoon, and the two of you, it's just business as usual. It's nothing special. Now, for those who wait and actually build something solid, build a good connection with somebody, go get married, do things the Lord's way. You go on your honeymoon. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Ooh, it's an exclusive, and it's like, okay, we've earned it. That's life, folks. When you're doing life with someone, that's the way it should be. That is the feeling that you should be. That is the concept and the mindset that you should have. All right. So I didn't have that mindset. I wasn't privy to this knowledge in the household and the kind of the worldview I had. All right, and the girl I was with, she grew up without a father in the household. So as I had to accept the fact that even though she would say it over and over again to me, oh, I love you, Aswan, I love you, you're the greatest, yada, 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 blah, 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 blah. I'm used to, it's like Drake said, I when they tell me that they love me, I know better than that. It's just game. It's what comes with the fame. I'm just saying, or something like that. Yeah. When they tell me that they love me, I know better than that. It's just game. It's just what comes with the fame. And I'm ready for that. I'm just saying. Yeah. All right. Shout out to Drake on that. I think the song is Over or something like that. That's a hard line. It's a hard line. I remember hearing that in college, and he was right. When they tell me that they love me, I know it's just what comes with the fame. I'm better than that. I'm ready for that. I'm just saying. And he's right. When they tell you that they love you, that it's just what comes with the fame. You're going to hear, I love you, I love you, I love you. You're going to hear that a lot. You're going to hear that a lot. You have to be able to use your own discernment and say, if you do love a person, then your actions should say you love this person, not your words. All right. So let me get back to my dating history. All right. So yeah, my worldview, working household, the high school sweetheart I had was someone that grew up she was her mother and her sister, and both of these two had different fathers. So she's grown. This is 3 women. I never thought about this stuff when just when we're clear, I never thought about this kind of stuff when I was in high school. I thought about getting some ass, and that was it. But this is the household that she grew up in. She grew up in a household that it was her older sister, and her mother. 3 women in one house. One's the mother, and the sister had a different daddy. All right. So as I grew up and I thought about her situation, I'm like, bro, that's not something you want. That's not something you want. And again, I'm not here to judge anybody for what they do and all that, but there has to be a reason that the mother done messed it up with 2 men. All right, because the father was still alive. The father was living in New York while she was living in Maryland. And then, the older sister, that father, I don't know what went on with them, but they had different daddies. And there was something, obviously, that there's something off with the mother. Again, I met her, and, there's a couple times we actually interacted, and there was a couple tense moments, but it was towards the end. It was towards the end of, they were Jamaican. So, as a Trini man, there's always going to be some little tension there. But, I didn't have too many issues with the mother as you may think. I didn't have too many interactions, we'll say it like that. But the bottom line is, the main thing I'm saying here, listen to the spirit of the point, is all Aswan was to this girl who thought she loved Aswan, who thought she was so in love with Aswan. The only thing I was simply a guy that was filling a void. It has taken me years to have to be able to admit that on camera, on a live stream, for everyone to hear. That right there, when I had to accept the fact that Aswan wasn't the man, Mr. Right, even though, again, we were together for 4 years. It was a 4-year relationship, did everything. Everything that you can think of that 2 high school kids would do. And when I had to realize, when I had to accept it, again, I'm walking in, played football, and I got this. You got to think too, man. Listen, I went to Good Counsel. So Good Counsel High School was predominantly Caucasian. So when I would bring her to like homecomings and proms and all that, we didn't, a lot of us black guys, we didn't really see too many bad black girls like that, like really put together black women like that. So I had one of the few that I was able to walk around with, like, yeah, boy. I got those like hand claps and high fives and all that. And when I had to accept the fact that this girl really was not in love with me per se, she was just simply filling the void that her father left, because the father was, again, he was living with some family in New York, and he didn't like, I'm thinking about it now as I'm on this side of life. It's like, do you know how much you have to hate a woman? Do you know how much you have to hate a woman to have a daughter with her, and then have it to the point where she's living 4 or 5 hours away from you, and you can't stand this woman to the point where you would leave your own daughter with the woman that you left? That's a lot, man. That's a lot. I'm just giving it to you real, man. That is a lot of stuff. I mean, I've been doing so much thinking about this stuff over the years. Again, as soon as this little girl was born, as soon as my niece was born, these were the things I was considering, because at the time that my niece was, at least at the time that I found out my niece was coming, I went from my high school sweetheart, who, again, I expressed was fatherless, kind of in a place where she used Aswan as this guy that's filling the void. I went from her to a single mother that was, 5 years older than me. So I wasn't even old enough to take her out there. I couldn't even buy her a drink. It's 19 years old. I told you that it's a crazy dating history that I have. There's a reason I'm able to speak on this stuff very, very fluently and very open and honestly. So I go from this kind of, I guess you can call it an innocent high school relationship. Wasn't as innocent, but it wasn't that big of a deal considering all the things that can happen in a high school relationship. But I went from that to spent the year and towards the end of our relationship, I was cheating, and I was a freshman in college, and I was I wasn't faithful by any means at all when I was there, but it was towards the end of it anyway. So, and again, high school freshman, high school me, 18-year-old Aswan is different than 36-year-old Aswan. But anyway, so 18 years old, I'm at Carson Newman College, and I moved back home because I tear my ACL and I have to get a restart on life. I have to move on. There's just things aren't going according to plan. So I finally break things off with her in high school. I'm like, look, things are just different because I can't play football anymore. I don't have the game that made it so I can ignore all of the red flags that I've been seeing for the past 4 years. All of the things that you don't do, all the things that you say, but your actions don't match up to the things that you say. They're two completely different things. I couldn't ignore it at that point because I tore my ACL, and now the game is not available for me to play, and it wasn't a distraction, right? So finally break things off with her, and then the next relationship I get into, check this, I'm 19 years old, and I end up getting a relationship with a 25-year-old single mother who had a 2-year-old that worked in the same gym I did, man, from Trinidad too. And I was like, okay. Like, to say I was out of my league, oh my, that's an understatement to say I was out of my league, because I was just happy to be getting laid by a 25-year-old woman. I just graduated high school. I'm like, I had the worldview of the high school kid. I had the worldview of the high school kid. And I remember when I first done it, I'm slapping. I'm like, yeah, boy. I'm thinking of all my like high school teammates of how proud they would be. It's like, an older woman, brother, you done did it. You done stepped up. But what happened was that I found, no, hold on, there was a couple of things I found out during this time. And this was the time my view changed. First of all, I found out this little girl was coming. All right. I was freshman in high school, sophomore in college. My sister had graduated. My sister's 5 years older than me. So my sister graduated college, and she was seeing their father. They're not together anymore, but she was seeing their father. Right. And they were not married. They were, I didn't know where it was. I remember the year before, I wasn't in, when they met, actually, I wasn't in Maryland. So I never really questioned it, never really understood how they met or anything like that. To be 100%, I don't even think I have the story. I don't even think I ever got the story as to how they actually met. Now that I'm thinking about it, I couldn't even if it was available, if I wanted to tell you, I couldn't even tell you how they met. But what I do know happened is my life completely changed. It completely changed. 20 years old. Was I 20? No, I was somewhere around the 20-year-old mark. Okay. Completely changed when my sister walked into my room, woke me up, and just had this tone. You got to think, me and her have lived through everything. This is the one person, one woman that can really understand my worldview, the type of household we grew up in, and the type of pressure that was on us, the type of things that we saw growing up. She walks into my room and says, "Hey, you're going to be an uncle." Swear to God, that was my reaction. I said, "What? Oh my mother effing what is?" I mean, I could not believe my ears. I was moved. Like, what? Now, this is where things could have gotten really bad for me. This is where I appreciate, like, when I look at this kid right here, when I look at this kid, I know it's not me plugging the book, but you can get it, Transferring D1, MakeItMove.com, latest book. Now look at this kid right here. I was around this age. All right. This was a year before. This picture was taken a year before my niece was born, right? The year before. She was born the year before. And I got to tell you, that rocked my world, because if I would have followed what the world says is accepted, what the world views as normal, then what I would have done was I would have made the mistake of taking or continuing to move forward with this single mom that I was seeing at the time, like, having a fling with at the time, who I found out had hooked up with virtually all the trainers at the gym. This is just what she did. She was just one of those hoes that just ran around and, put herself out there because she was so desperate in finding a man. I would have, moved in that direction, and I would not have pursued the goal that I had initially before I met her, which was to play football at Stony Brook University. See where the blessing comes in. And here's what happened. There's a couple points throughout my sister's initial pregnancy that really taught me indirectly, all right, Aswan, you just got to do better. You got to do better. Why does Aswan have to do better? Because Aswan knows better. I'm not saying do better if you're a person out there that, like, I had a roommate my freshman year in college who actually had his girl, he had a baby that year, like 18-year-old kid who was actually scheduled. He was my roommate. He was projected to be a starter on the team, and he couldn't even go back and play because he had to take care of his daughter. Like, who knows what could have happened if he would have stayed all 4 years and if he didn't have the kid and all that. But what happened was when I saw, so there was a couple, like I said, there was a couple points throughout my sister's pregnancy that was giving me this insight, was giving me this idea, giving me this concept that Aswan, you have to do better, number one, because this is number two. Number one, you have to do it because you know better, and you see someone that you love very deeply, very much, like that you grew up with. Again, this is my sister that we grew up incredibly tight. You see her, you see certain things happening to her that is going to make it so those years that you guys spent together, that it's never going to be the same. It's never going to be like it was. Those years, those days are over officially. All right. And it's time for you to look back on those years. Don't look at it as like a sad thing, even though it can be sad. Look at it as a blessing that you have those memories. You have those memories so you can go out and you can seek relationship with someone. You don't have to seek sex with someone, if you want to seek sex with someone, you can take your $100 or $150, whatever it is they're charging, whatever it is they have, go to a strip club or whatever the money, whatever the amount is. Nowadays, shit, they got OnlyFans now that I think actually you can, if I'm not mistaken, I do, again, I really don't know this stuff because I've been porn free for about 8 or 9 months at this point. But I do believe there's OnlyFans models now that make it so they let you pick the price, and then it's whatever they do based on all sorts of sick stuff going on with the porn industry, because the internet has made things very accessible to folks. But what was happening was, as she was going through a pregnancy, I was realizing the years that we spent as brother, sister growing up and all the cool things we did, all of that now you get to look at and apply to something bigger. All right. Apply it towards how you go out and you evaluate women and vet women out and see who can lean into your worldview. You made a mistake, obviously, with the high school sweetheart. And again, nothing wrong with her necessarily, just a young high school girl trying not to be her mother. Then you made potentially an even bigger mistake that would have really, really messed your life up with that single mother that you could have easily, that would have been just a bad ending. No, especially because I think, if I'm not mistaken, she actually did get pregnant again with some guy. I mean, her life just a mess, an absolute mess, an absolute embarrassment to the entire island of Trinidad and Tobago. All right. So when I saw my niece born, like when I saw her as a baby, and then I seen her grow up throughout the years, because like I said, now she's going to be 16 soon. And I saw some of the things that I suspected would happen when she was first, actually, before I get there, let me just tell you a quick story. Before I get there, let me tell you a quick story, because this part, I've never actually told this story. It was actually during my sister's baby shower, right? So yeah, because this is what happened. Yeah, this is why I tell you, becoming an uncle is actually what transformed my view on love and what it's all about, right? So it was during the baby shower. It was actually during the baby shower. My sister had the baby shower at the household we grew up in. This was before she got her house. So she had the baby shower at the place that me and her grew up in. And, I was there obviously helping the best way I could, because this is where I was staying at the time. And I was going to junior college as I was rehabbing my knee, and I was still, training and all that kind of stuff. So I was seeing the whole thing develop. And not only that, now that I'm really thinking about it, one of my best friends that, like, even to this day, like one of my day one, shout out to Omar, we were training together at that time. And he's actually one of the guys that I even now, if I meet someone, I'm always, hitting him up, or he's one of the ones now that became like a brother to me, and is always telling me, yo, Aswan, I'm telling you, got to meet someone. The minute you meet someone, Aswan, I'm telling you, your business is about to go to another level. Everybody, pretty much for the past 10 years at this point, I've heard, okay, Aswan, you got to meet someone, because most of the people that meet me have recognized my talent, they recognize my ambition, they recognize my ability, and they know that if with the right woman having my back, with the right situation, there's absolutely no stopping me. And this is why I don't get offended now when people look at me kind of funny for being single and all that kind of stuff, because I know it's more so they're saying it from a complimentary standpoint. They're not saying it to be assholes, or they're not saying it to, kind of demean me or anything like that. There's no ill intent towards when they're saying it. And that I've learned over time too. But anyway, he was actually trying to get things right with his girl, and he was actually the stepdad, and this was before he had kids of his own. So it was interesting. Now I'm thinking about it, the kind of energies and the kind of people that were in my life at that particular time. But anyway, back to the baby shower. The baby shower was something that was like eye-opening to me, because this was the first time, again, 20 years old at this point, this was the first time I've ever been around a pregnant woman. This was the first time, I swear. This was the first time I've ever been around a pregnant woman, and this pregnant woman happened to be my sister. And the mood swings, the damn, I remember one time I took her a shirt to wear it, and she's flipping out on me. And then the next morning she sends me some apology text. Just crazy. dead ass, bro. I am dead ass. My sister's like pregnancy was the first time I ever saw that, and I'm still to this day spooked, right? So we get to the baby shower, and they had a DJ there, and everything was, it's towards the end of the break because it was the summer. It was the summer, and as I was, this is like a celebratory thing. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing my sister have to do all these things because she's pregnant, take this pill, to eat this, all sorts of things that the doctor ordered to do. And I'm like, man, that sucks. It sucks being a woman and pregnant. And I'm like, and my dad kind of stopped me and had a serious moment with me as he goes, you see, that's the point. We as men got to be the providers. We as men got to be the ones providing. We as men got to do this. And he gets into his speech and doing all that kind of stuff. So, having those types of moments as I was becoming an uncle made me very aware, very detail oriented, very picky, very choosy, very much like, if you're going to do this, you have got to do it God's way. There's no getting around it. I don't care what you say. I don't care who you are. If you take anything away from this Valentine's Day message, and again, I know I got all over the place. I thought I was going to actually be able to express the dating history, but really just the two that I mentioned today, just know that set the tone for a lot of the stuff I've lived through 16 years later. Okay. You have the one that was raised by a single mother, grew up in a house that with an older sister who had two different daddies, a single mother, the older sister, and two different daddies. You had that one, and then you had the single mom that was old, that was 5 years older than me. Those were like the two that set the tone for a lot of crazy stuff later. I don't have time to get into now, but just know that knowing how those two turned out, knowing where my worldview was then to where it is now, to where now the focus, and you hear a message like Craig Groeschel's message, where he's talking about making sure you're doing things God's way. When you hear that kind of message, you hear things under that context. When you hear things under that context, I realized that no matter what, you got to be seeking God, because these are relationships and they're meshing two lives. And as I held her in my hands for the first time, and then as I see her grow and see every stage from toddler stage to becoming a little girl now that is inquisitive and asking all sorts of questions, becoming, going from the girl that is loving, running around and playing with her uncle, then becoming a teenager. And, now she's talking back, and now she's, I think now my mother was saying that she's applying for like a lifeguard position, and now she's going to be in the working world and all that. This was the first time that I've seen that transition, like from start to finish, which is what makes me now, again, because this is why today's title is Becoming an Uncle. This is what makes me very leery and very much understanding that your intentions about what it is you're doing need to be very clear and very concise and very much communicated to a potential suitor. It is not about giving a bunch of candy and sending a bunch of roses and sending a bunch of hearts, giving a bunch of gifts on Valentine's Day. That's what the world likes to push on you. Don't allow it to push that on you, because if you keep going down that tray, if you keep going down that path, eventually you will end up sad, brokenhearted, disappointed. And because of things that you could have accomplished, you think you're going to sit back and think back. Like one of the things, and I'll close you out with just this idea. One of the things that really gets me through this idea of being single, or this idea that one person is going to be, just going to solve all my problems. One of the things that really gets me through it is like, there's so much. If you would have taken the route of several of your peers, there's so much I couldn't do. I couldn't do this live stream, right? I couldn't do more books. I couldn't have this content. I couldn't have the monetization. I couldn't have all these revenue streams and all these things working for me, because every move that I would have made would have had to be about, does it make me enough money to support her and a kid? Now I can make moves that don't make me as that are just able to support me, but I can build on top of these things. And that's what pushes me every day. And that's what I have to take advantage of. So that's my Valentine's Day message for today. I'll probably dig more into this tomorrow. as we go over Faith-Based Friday. I honestly wasn't sure what direction this one was going to go, but obviously we went in a lot of different places because it's one of those things that I didn't realize there are certain things that are still in me to this day. As I'm learning, I'm recapping certain things that has shaped my worldview to this day, which is why it's important that you get this stuff out, you speak about it, you communicate it first and foremost to yourself. You got to communicate it, and then that's when you can start helping and doing things and communicating what's on your heart and on your mind to other people. So all that being said, main website to check out to dive deeper into everything I'm doing, it's makeyourmove.com. That's makeyaMove.com. Also, be sure to tap in with me on the Patreon link, patreon.com/ask144. Everyone out there, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.